Okay,
See, we
why don't we
switched.
just start in this session? I'll be the mystery voice here. I'm sorry, no camera is not working. So I am going to post some websites that were shared with us throughout the presentation. Our speakers provided some wonderful resources. And the first thing I want to do is post these in for the public chat and remind people that the Hearing Loss Association of America has wonderful resources online that they can find, including a toolkit that people can access. So please look at these resources as I post them. And I'm going to have our group field some of the questions that you post in the Q&A chat room. So please visit that tab and post some questions. And the first one I want to throw out there that I think everybody can contribute to is the role of volunteerism. So it may be that getting your foot in the door is one of the most difficult parts. So how do you feel about people asking to volunteer and getting to know them and their skill sets in that way without an official employment obligation? So Greg, why don't I start with you and let you to speak about that?
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll be happy to kick it off. So, I think there's no question how important volunteerism is in our organization. Everyone will notice the things that you do to create a better and more meaningful culture, environment, and experience at your organization, or whether it's in your community, or whether it's in your profession, or for your own personal benefits. And I think that all of us really need to be looking for these kinds of opportunities. The world is drifting with boards that are waiting for you to serve on them, with organizations that are waiting for you to jump in and take on a leadership role, whether it's for Habitat for Humanity, Keep America Beautiful, or even with the Hearing Loss Association of America. I think that there's just so many opportunities to find your niche. And this kind of goes back to what I said earlier about networking and the power of meeting people. Because volunteerism is what gets you on the radar. It's what gets you in front of some very important people to you, and people who are going to help you elevate, I think, yourself professionally. I will give you just one quick example. It's really insignificant, but it meant a lot to me and helped me grow professionally. I joined my employee business resource group, and when I joined my employee business resource group, I did not seek to take on a leadership role. I just wanted to help, and I just wanted to be a part of the conversation at my company. And the steering team tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you should really think about taking on a leadership role within your employee resource group." And I thought, okay, it's more work. And the last thing I wanted was to add another thing to my plate. But what happened because I was on the EBRG and I took on a leadership role was it put me right in front and center with our executives. And we were able to show that we created strategies, built programs, and were able to drive teams. And those kinds of dynamics combined with that visibility that you get is enormous. Great example, shameless bragging, but Theo actually, because he was a part of our employee business resource group, and I see him smiling, he knows what's coming. Theo actually had a panel interview with our CEO, Phil Demchak, and our Chief Executive for Technology, and our Chief HR Officer, and our Chief Retail Officer. And it was just a candid conversation. And I think it was so powerful because Theo put himself on the map in the organization. And since then, he has been driving a number of accessibility projects in the organization. So I tell people all the time, if you don't have time to volunteer, find it. It will benefit you enormously. And I am a huge proponent of that.
Great. Betsy, what about bowling? What's your perspective?
Very similar to Greg. I think that it's easier to volunteer when you already have a job and you're in the workplace. Not that it's easier to do it and to find time to do it, but it's certainly easier to find opportunities. And that's where I see people expanding their careers all the time. Is it maybe something kind of a pet project that they're interested in? They volunteer their time and say, I would like to be part of that. They go get involved, and then next thing you know, that organization is looking to hire somebody, and the first person who comes to mind is the person who had volunteered on one of those projects. So there's definitely room for it in when you're already in a career situation. I think it is more challenging if you're not in a career, if you're looking to get started in a new career, finding those opportunities to volunteer for events that they're hosting out in the community and see if there's a place for you to volunteer there. And it's a great for networking, just like Greg had mentioned, networking and getting your name out there, meeting new people from the company, learning more about the company and what they do. And that's all information that you can use when you've got your interview to show the company that you've done your homework and you're familiar with the role and you're familiar with the company and you're ready to roll up your sleeves and get in there. So I echo exactly what Greg said, that if you can volunteer, you should. And if you can find the time to do that,
Okay, I think we are having some technical difficulties, so I apologize if I'm speaking over you, Betsy. If you can hear me still, what I'd like to do is then use this as an opportunity to think about volunteerism as a gateway to entering the workforce in smaller businesses. So here we have PNC and Boeing as being large companies and geographically located. There are people on the queue that are providing questions about, what if they live, rurally? What if they live in smaller towns? How can they approach advocating for themselves and approaching some of these smaller companies that may actually appear to be resistant to including people with disabilities? Theo, let me start with you there.
Am I audible?
You are.
All right. Well, yeah, I could add to that. So volunteering, whether it's on in a bigger organization or a smaller organization, when you volunteer, you share your differences and you gain invaluable experiences from the people that you meet. So, and even at times you might find yourself sitting next to the CEO and having a conversation, to Greg's point. So when you volunteer, you connect and share different backgrounds, different trainings, life experiences, cultures, perspectives, and opinions, which allows for you to get to a new place of thinking and creativity. And within groups, it ignites innovation. So it opens pathways for positive growth and development, whether it be a big or a small organization, and it may even possibly lead you to your next step on your career path. So I can't stress enough: get involved. Whether you're with a Fortune 500 company or a mom and pop company, get involved. Meet individuals with different viewpoints, skill sets, and backgrounds. I can't stress that enough. That's how you gain constructive experiences that you could take and help that next company find the solution to build and grow. So companies with employees that are actively involved in volunteerism nurture diversity. They nurture diversity in work environments, which creates new pathways towards success for both the individual and organization. So whether you're volunteering for HLAA or Habitat for Humanity, it gives you that opportunity to connect with individuals, find solutions to answers you've been looking for, and take those to your, take those for the growth of smaller organizations or bigger organizations. So I can't stress that enough. And it's funny that Greg actually mentioned, hey, I've been offered the opportunity to volunteer for a group, and that I got a lot of stuff going on, and I can't really add that to my plate. Never look at it that way. Never look at it that way. That always look at it as a learning experience for you to grow and help others grow as well.
So, Greg, if you can hear me, I can't see you, but hopefully we can reconcile that. This touches on the idea, again, even getting your foot into the door with volunteerism, touched a few listeners' gut reactions to the fear of maybe disclosing. You, PNC, and Boeing we're holding up as exemplars. So it's no surprise that you might say, disclose at the time of the interview and things like that. But not all companies may feel that way. So what advice would you have if you're unsure about the culture of a department or a company, and even if it is a small company? Have you seen instances that maybe disclosure has backfired? And can we speak a little about that from a perspective of uncertainty, knowing that not all companies are as progressive as you?
That's a great question, Kelly. And one of the things that I have often told people about self-disclosure, and let me just preface this by saying that it always comes down to personal judgment. It never, this is not professional legal advice, but what I often tell people is when you look at, let's say, disabilityin.org or the top 50 companies for disability inclusion, because there are magazine publications out there that will give you the top 50 to 100 companies that are performing in the space of disability inclusion. Those companies have recruiters who are usually designated to look for people with disabilities who want to bring diversity into their organization. So it is their goal to try to create a diverse culture. So for those organizations, it's very, I won't say easy, but it is much more beneficial, in my opinion, to reach out to those companies and say, do you have a disability recruiter? Or is there somebody that I can talk to from a disability standpoint? And they will often have those recruiters and those resources available to speak with you. And also the recruiters all have a objective to bring in and diversify the talent pool. Having said that, that usually is a good time to disclose once you're speaking with the recruiter. And those are the kinds of companies that I think you can safely self-identify or disclose to. Now, that being said, the same is not necessarily true for smaller to middle-sized companies. Oftentimes, when you have a smaller company, there are no recruiters or recruiting organizations. Usually your interaction is directly with the hiring manager. And when you apply with the hiring manager, that person is making the decision that they are going to hire you or not. And in those instances, I've always told people it's sometimes better to get your foot in the door first, and then self-identify or self-disclose that you have a disability, because you have the chance in that moment to show up and to show up the value that you have to bring to the table. Once you're already in the room, they're not going to kick you out, right? You're going to have an opportunity to demonstrate your talent and the skill set that you bring to the table. For middle-sized companies, oftentimes that's a little sticky, I think, and it comes down to personal judgment. And I'm going to tell you that over and over again. I would never go say, okay, this company you can self-identify to, this company you cannot self-identify to. But when you look at like companies that are proactively showing up at disability conferences or showing up here at the HLAA, or actively sponsoring and going to events that focus center on disability hiring and disability recruiting, those are the kind of companies I would say you can comfortably reach out to, and you will have a path in, I think, for those types of companies. But again, I have to emphasize, personal judgment because smaller companies don't have a organization dedicated to recruitment, and that also means they don't necessarily have diversity targets or a strategy around recruiting and hiring disability talent.
Thanks for that, Greg. And I'll add a couple of reminders too, is I've again reposted some of the links to the organizations that you all referred to in the future in your speech. Just so feel free to visit those links in the chat room now. But two other potential resources that have come from our communities, as well as myself, who is an audiologist. This is something that we as professionals often try to build into auditory rehabilitation. And so it may be that your audiologist can help advocate for you or connect you or network you with people who have opportunities or can introduce you to people. So don't forget to lean on your audiologist for that. Elizabeth, on our Q&A section, also remind everybody that each state has a vocational rehabilitation program, and they also can assist with workplace advocacy. So that's something that to keep in mind. And also, if you are employed and you may be only one, here's an opportunity to build a culture within a company and often an opportunity for you to educate your employers about the importance of inclusion, diversity, and accessibility. So I'm going to open it up. People are asking this question, and we have no crystal ball, but if somebody wants to maybe take a guesstimate of what we think post-COVID might look like, might there be more opportunities for deaf and hard of hearing people in the post-pandemic workforce, given that the possibility of working at home with a set of tools that are personal to you to be able to be present and efficient in a way that is accessible. Do we see a future that is more accessible post-pandemic that will open opportunities for employment? I'll throw it out there to Betsy. If you want to add something, start first.
Sure. Can you hear me okay through this audio? I can't get my webcam to work. Okay, great. Yeah, I do think there could be more opportunities because we are seeing things more virtual, and that just opens up the ability for people to work from whatever location is convenient for them. But along with that comes a lot of challenges. I've had a lot of folks come to me and explain that because we've moved to a virtual environment, they are not able or as able to participate on WebExes or Zoom or whatever the audio conference platform might be, that not being able to talk to someone face to face is really challenging for them because they rely on lip reading and facial expressions to help facilitate communication. And so I think that while there could be more opportunities, there's also a few barriers that workplaces and employers are going to have to address to figure out how do we better manage our Zoom meetings, how do we have better camera visibility so that people can still have that communication when they're not physically in the same space. So that's kind of, and I don't have a great solution to that. At Boeing, like I'd mentioned before, we do try to train teams on raising their hand before they speak, stating their name before they start to speak, and we do offer captioning for employees who need it. But it's a cultural shift, and it takes time to train teams and to get people to become comfortable proceeding in that manner with their audio and Zoom platforms. So I think that's probably the main challenge for those virtual things and virtual employment opportunities. Yeah.
Leo, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. So, so I'm actually using an application. It's called Sonic Cloud that allows me to take my hearing aids off and hear you through this headset. I have binaural sensory neural hearing loss, and normally for something like this, I would be very nervous and not have a lot of confidence to speak on a call like this. But with this application, it gives me that ability to do so, and do so with as so much confidence when it comes to the virtual world. So a lot of applications like this are starting to surface, given the recent events of COVID-19, of course, and now is the time to explore them. And from what I've noticed as well, a lot of people are asking me, what are you using? I understand that this helps you, and this is where you have to share that information. That's the most important thing. When you find something that works for you, it may not work for everybody, of course, but it may work for another individual. That's why it's so important to share within your organizations when you come across applications. I'm part of a digital accessibility team that's our purpose. That's our purpose is to scout and find these applications that work for individuals. And if something's not working, we find the solution. So that's technology is continuously improving, and it's making making disabilities not disabilities. I don't even like that word that much. It's giving us the ability to make that transparent and go away, and giving everyone universal abilities in a way. So when you come across technology, especially during this time, this is the time to start exploring those things, because these companies and this tech is surfacing, and it's due to unfortunate events. But this is where we need to start exploring more, and taking advantage of what works for individuals, and using that to connect and learn and grow, and develop.
Great advice. Greg, I'm going to give you the final word. I'm just looking at the clock. We're going to run over by a minute or two, but any final words of advice?
I would just say that the landscape for corporate business as usual experiences has definitely changed. And it was overnight, somebody threw a wrench into the engine, and every single company just squeezed short hearts and had to reevaluate how we provide, how we continue to keep the work going. And the same can be said about accessibility too. We had to reevaluate how we provide accommodations, how we think about accommodating people with disabilities in our meetings and our regular business as usual processes. And what I will say though is, in many ways it worked out for the better. In other ways it worked out not so good. But I think the beauty of what is happening is, to Theo's point, it has allowed us to get extremely innovative in the way we do business. I think that down the road, and I think Betsy mentioned this a little bit, but people are going to be able to work from home now going forward, because I think companies are starting to realize, oh my gosh, people are so valuable even when they're working from home. They brought in all this cool technology, and artificial intelligence and live captioning, live transcribe is continuing to transform the industry. I'm watching some of the comments on the presentation, and I'm seeing a lot of people talk about AVA and talk about Google Live Transcribe program. Those are going to blow up. And those artificial intelligence is going to become paramount, I think, to the future of corporate America and to businesses everywhere. And we need to be very mindful of that. So in a way, I think COVID-19 has been a project for us to really modernize America and to really, the world, to really modernize how we do business and to improve the way we interact and the way we are efficient in meeting with each other. Because if you're like me, I'm a people person. I like to work closely with somebody, but this has made me need to reevaluate how I do that and how I still get the experience without being under 6 feet, with Theo or any of my other coworkers. So I think that the future for us is going to be very positive. I have no doubt we are resilient, and we are definitely going to come out of this much better and much more accessible than we have been. I truly do believe that.
I couldn't agree more. I think all of us are on the same page there. I think this pendulum swish that we've been thrust into is an opportunity to look at how effective we can be and making better use of technology for everybody and normalizing this technology that was once presented for a certain portion of the population. I'd also like to add, as somebody who also specializes in aging, as we all tend to acquire hearing loss as we grow older, I think that need to accommodate people who are living longer and working longer will also add to the momentum, and I think force the hands of corporations to increase accommodation in the workplace, because as we live longer, we have to work longer and earn longer. So I think we've got multiple directions coming in that will hopefully help achieve the same goal. And I think there's strengths in many. So on this note, I want to thank you. Again, and on behalf of my fellow board members. I want to do a shout out again to Sherry Parazzoli and Zina Dwali, who have helped behind the scenes to help to develop this employment track and this initiative. We're going to continue to work hard. We're going to honor more companies. So if you know of a company that is doing a great job, please let us know for next year's convention. Or here's your opportunity to go out and find a company, convert them, and let them know that there is acknowledgement and reward for doing so on a personal level, as well as a community level. I want to direct you again. If you look in the chat room and you look at my name, you'll see I've presented a number of different links that you can use. One of those links is the Hearing Loss Association of America's toolkit. It has many of the lists of items, checkboxes to think about during the interview process, during the onboarding process. And so that's free. It's on the website. And finally, all of these seminars are being recorded. So if you have a colleague, friend, or family who couldn't join us, then share this resource with them, that they can watch this video play out on their website on their own time. So on that note, thank you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Theo. Thank you, Betsy. Congratulations. And I want to see you guys next year at this convention, and I want to hear about more employees and more initiatives. So thank you, and thank you for joining us, everybody online. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.